Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Talking Headless show. This is a monthly show about analysts and analysts' relations. The community is very small. We'd like to see it grow and give it more visibility. So I'm very happy today. My name is Shashi Belamkonda, and I work for the Infotech Research Group as a Principal Research Director. But I'm really excited today because I have some really wonderful guests. Emma Flanagan from OpenText. She's an AR leader and has been around for a very long time. I'm going to let her introduce herself. But wow, look at the number of companies that she's worked with. After that, we'll have Rebecca Wettemann. Again, she also lives in the DC area. We have interacted a few times, and I've also spoken to Emma a few times. So feel free to post your questions and also, if you have any comments on what we are discussing, that should be great. Our mission is to elevate analyst relations and the technology analyst community. So with that, I want to introduce the first guest that we have here's Emma Flanagan. Good to have you, Emma. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me today, Shashi. This is a really great way to kick off the Thanksgiving break, which is just around the corner.
Exactly. No, I really love that. So let's talk about your journey to analyst relations. Like, how did it all begin and what are you doing now?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And this was something I was reflecting on before our conversation. And my journey to AR actually began in Rome, Italy, before I even knew AR was my calling. So a little background context, I went to school at the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. And during my junior year of college, I had the opportunity to compete in the annual Vatican Hackathon in Rome, Italy. Salesforce at the time was one of the sponsors. They sent different individuals, folks to mentor those that were participating and competing in the competition. Long story short, I met a long-term mentor and friend there that I then continued to keep up the rapport with over the years throughout college and ended up doing AR or kind of jumping into the field of AR before even realizing it. So John Tashik from Salesforce used to bring me in several times to the CRM Evolution Conference with Brent Leary, Paul Greenberg, that whole gang. So it was really wonderful to get to know them throughout college, go to their conference, really soak things up as a college student at the time. And then, longer story short, I began my professional career in organizational change management. And of course, in any line of work, it's really important to understand the value of change and the value of educating stakeholders to get on board and then work towards a common goal with one another. And after being in that role, I was then prompted from Salesforce. They said, hey, we have this great AR opportunity. Do you want to take it, and run with it? And at the time, I had no clue or didn't think I knew what AR was. But I knew that I loved technology. I loved being in these interesting conversations. And to be at such a world-class AR team and with a company such as Salesforce, it was an opportunity that I couldn't say no to. So at Salesforce, I supported our sales and service cloud with two really great mentors, really got to be a sponge. And I like to call Salesforce my boot camp to all things AR, where I really got to hone the fundamental best practices of AR. And then from there, I am now currently at Micro Focus / OpenText. When I joined Micro Focus, my manager and I at the time were scaling our team, building everything from the ground up and establishing those best practices. About 2 years later, we got acquired by OpenText, and currently I'm leading our DevOps and as well our ITSM portfolio here at OpenText. So it's been quite the journey, and I'm very grateful for all the relationships like yourself and other analysts and individuals that I met along the way.
Very nice. Started in Rome. Huh?
Yes.
Very cool. Yeah, I love that. Now, having been in like multiple companies and everything, one question I think a lot of discussion among the AR community is building the credibility for analyst relations at the executive level and measuring the ROI of AR programs. What is your view on that?
Yes, no, that's a really good question in terms of building that credibility. And this can be easier said than done depending on the maturity of an AR team. For example, during my time at Salesforce, it was a very well-established, well-oiled machine where the execs were already on board. We had the budget and the resources to do what we needed to do to really run and operate a world-class team, which was wonderful. However, at different companies, depending on the size, or perhaps if you're even scaling up a program, there can be more pushback on why do we need AR when we just hot potato it between product marketing, product management, et cetera. So my 3 tips for building credibility to answer your question is 1, to speak the language of the business. this is something that I take a lot of pride in terms of really honing in on the coverage areas that I'm supporting. So I'm doing more than just the tactical work of, hey, here's this report, get it done, have fun, but really being able to talk the talk and have a seat at the table, I believe makes such a difference in terms of the value the AR brings to the broader organization. Two, I believe it's really important to tell the truth early and then back it with a plan. What I love about conversations like ours throughout the years and other analysts is that you, as the analysts, are so in touch with the market and the timely insights, competitors, et cetera. And I believe it's so important to bring analysts like yourself along our journey. So both you are aware of what we're doing and vice versa, so we can stay on top of market trends, research differentiators, and really use these conversations as proof points and validation points that our roadmap is heading in the right direction. And three, my last tip would be creating alignment that makes everyone better. End of day, I acknowledge that AR is such a small function of everyone's day-to-day role. So I really try to be a sponge and recognize what are the priorities of my colleagues and being proactive of sending them timely research, or, hey, X competitor just had X conference, here's some timely insights, et cetera. But really being that extra resource that helps get deals, sales motions, et cetera, across the line. Because end of day, I think we can say we're great as much as we can, but until we have a customer reference or an analyst like yourself singing our praises, that goes such a longer way, because so many people are sharing the same AI journey or talk track, but it's up to us to really differentiate that story and narrative to the broader audience.
Very nice. I think we'll have a very well-known analyst, Rebecca, in a few minutes too on the show. It's very fascinating. Like if I was ever writing a book, I would call it Activate. And what I mean by that is you activated the opportunity that you got and you came into AR and you have been like thriving there. What advice do you have for people who probably are in marketing or in other professions who might think like, should I move into AR or not? And what should they be doing?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. And this is something that I'm very passionate in terms of educating others on the value of AR, what our job scope is, and really just how to jump into that career profession, as you mentioned. I think at its core, so many jobs have a lot of transferable skills that can lead to a career in analyst relations. It's those relationship skills, sales. Are you personable? Are you strategic? Are you able to prepare execs to succeed and give them the resources to do so? And so my biggest tip for this, for those that are considering joining the analyst relations profession, is to really tap into the AR community. And this is something that I've really been striving and trying to improve for my own professional development over the years. Because as you mentioned in the intro, it is such a tight-knit community. And there's so many individuals that are willing to lend a helping hand, share insights. I have a variety of quarterly chats or catch-ups, whatever you want to call them, with other AR pros in the industry. And it's a mix of both picking one another's brains of, hey, this isn't working for me. What are you doing? Or how do you have best practices for getting budget for X? Sometimes it's just a vent session for, whatever's going on at the time, because we really understand and appreciate what one another are going through. But I truly do believe in the power of community, leaning on your people and learning from others, because end of day, you never know where one connection or relationship may take you. And end of day as well, there's no one way to do AR. So I'm a firm believer in being a sponge and really taking in different insights and approaches from other people.
Very nice. And I have to tell the audience, I have a beautiful Southern accent. If they don't understand something that I'm saying, please ask me. It's from the south of India, actually. Now, question for you, like tools are changing so fast. Almost every guest in the show has talked about like how they're using new tools. Some of them actually went back and created tools. What trends are you seeing with tools to make the analyst relations job a little bit easier and take off all the repetitive work, maybe?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. And as we both know, there are so many really interesting trends. Of course, there's the AI hype and how can we integrate that in our day-to-day workflow. For our team in particular, AI has made such a bigger difference in working smarter, not harder. End of day, we all have a million tasks on our plate, and it's about prioritizing those tasks, synthesizing that information, and getting it out in a timely fashion to our stakeholders. Something that I've really noticed in the AR community in particular is that AR has shifted and still is from the storytelling perspective. But I think something that's really important in our role is cutting through that AI noise. because now more than ever, there's even more research being pumped out there. Is it truly authentic and from yourself or my own, or is it ChatGPT working its magic and getting stuff out quicker with a less organic, genuine tone? So I think a role of AR is really cutting through that noise, providing those timely insights from analysts like yourself to ensure that we are staying top of mind and competitive in the market. Two, I believe it's really important that AR continues to be a strong interpreter for the market within the company, because there is so much information out there, and it's our tool or job, I should say, to equip our teams with the tools and resources for success. A way that we've leveraged AI, for example, is yes, synthesizing that data internally, sending out timely research to our team, and really just making sure they're top of mind of what's going on in the market. And I believe as well, it's very important that AR is a strategic risk mitigator. Since there is so much AI hype out, it's really important that analyst relations professionals
I think you're going in and out a little
them
bit,
with
but
analysts like yourself, Gartner, Forrester, etc.
yeah, we just missed a little bit of what you said, but very, very important points. And I think you hit on all the right points there. Your own journey has been like you're multi-skilled. I think I saw on LinkedIn that you're a good bartender too. Is that true?
Yes, so a little background context on myself. So I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. My dad owned Flanagan's Pub in Dayton, Ohio for about 30 years. It was known as the classy law school bar growing up. So growing up, typical what you would do after school as a kid. My dad would pick us up from school.
Typical.
Yeah, typical. He'd pick me up from school. We'd go to the bar. I'd be doing homework at the bar. He'd be introducing me to different customers, patrons, community members. And I believe that's where I really began and fostered my ability on the relationship aspect of life, both personally and professionally. End of day, you never know what conversation or door, what that may lead you to. And while, again, similar to when I started in the Vatican Hackathon and didn't quite know being at the CRM evolution, what that would lead me to, I'm very grateful for those opportunities and the skills that they allowed me to hone. Because end of day, any job, no matter what you're in, it's the relationship business. And the more genuine and authentic you can be with others, I think it humanizes what we do and just makes the day-to-day so much more enjoyable. But yes, so I was raised in a bar, very grateful for the entrepreneurial skills and experiences that my dad provided for me. And as well, I think that really impacted my outlook on life in being very passionate, very entrepreneurial driven. And a mindset that my family taught me growing up is that if you don't ask, you don't get. So I'm always happy to be that squeaky wheel internally of asking, hey, can we get an extension? Or, hey, X, Y, and Z, because you just never know what is possible. And the worst that people can do is say no at the end of the day.
Oh, such an important thing. I also kind of relate a little bit because I spent some time in the hotel industry as well.
Yes.
The amount of power interacting with human beings has, it makes you understand and talk to people in a way that so these are great points. Now, I also want to share another experience about, I worked for a startup and I wasn't very familiar with analyst relations,
Yeah.
but we did invite an analyst. And instead of us listening to the analyst, we spoke the whole time, right?
Mhm.
Now, what advice do you have for like people who don't have an analyst relations program, or what are some best practices that you see in interacting with analysts, and how do you like make sure that in all the noise that is there with so much of software that you stand out? What are your tips for that?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. I think as a whole, for those that are wanting tips for standing up a program and just general AR best practices, is end of day to really view the day-to-day and what you do as a profession as a relationship business and not transactional. As I touched upon before, relationships and conversations like this are truly where you can get the most business and insights and I think change done for companies. I think it's really important to lean on your people, your community, and try to be in touch with the market as much as possible. And within analyst relations as well, it is an evolving career and industry like no other. So I think it's really important to lean on your people and always be open to change. Now more than ever, especially with the AI hype, there's so many ways you can integrate it in your day-to-day. We're told internally at OpenText that if you don't integrate in your day-to-day, you'll be left behind. So we're always trying to invent and brainstorm new ways of how can we work smarter, not harder, or Harder, smarter, not harder. There you go. Words are hard today. I'm in turkey mode. But I just think it's so important to really be open to change and learning how we can better serve and support our customers, community, et cetera.
Very nice. For those who are listening, please feel free to post any questions, and even if you are watching this recording after November 26th, feel free to post questions, because we will know how to get in touch with Emma when we do that. What other tips do you have, especially for a wide range of companies, right? Like some of them are with startups. One question that I wanted to ask you was, what if you were the only single AR person in a company? What would you prioritize, right? Like you have so much to do, and what are some questions that you can expect from both the management and from the analysts?
Sure. No, that's a very timely conversation, and one that I've been having with other AR colleagues in the field, because there is such a different experience, as you've alluded to, of being a team of one versus a team of seven in a more robust organization. So something that I've heard from a lot of my peers in terms of if and when you are a team of one, the first priority is better understand the landscape, who or like what company you're at, what are their priorities, what are the nuances, background context that you should know. This is something that I take pride in whenever I join a new team or organization, is scheduling what I like to call quick little coffee chats, 20, 25 minutes, short and sweet, where I can really have the opportunity to get to know the new colleagues or individuals, teams that I'm working with, both on a professional standpoint, but also personal, as they're comfortable sharing, because that's what makes the biggest difference in being able to meet people in the middle and it to feel more than just a job. Because end of day, if I can relate on one individual of, oh, we both prioritize fitness, or we really like wellness and mental health and are prioritizing that in our lives, it's just those little commonalities that make future asks down the road more easy and seamless, and make people want to get on board of whatever initiative you are striving towards. So one is really understanding the landscape. Two is, of course, as soon as possible, having conversations with analysts like yourself to better understand, yes, this is what our company thinks about us, but what is the broader community perceiving us as? What are our differentiators? Where are the gaps that we need to fill? How do we get there, et cetera? I found ways to really fast track these conversations is having advisory days with timely analysts in our respective spaces. This is a really great way to have an in-depth conversation of where we are, where do we want to be, how are we going to get there? Three, as you are in that kind of sponge incubation period of learning, absorbing, and really trying to map out that game plan, is getting those stakeholders and those champions in your corner. Because end of day, one person can't do it all. So it's about getting others on board, them educated on what you're doing, and them as well seeing the broader buy-in and benefits of us all working together as a team. It's no one easy plan, and there's no one way to do AR. However, I believe it's so important to lean our community and really listen to others and be open to different insights. Because when you join a new team, there's always different nuances you may be navigating, priorities, personalities, whatever it may be. But what I love about AR most is just the ability to really jump in, absorb everything that you can, and really start to map out that runway and strategic plan for how you're going to highlight the value that AR brings to the team and really make that cross-functional collaboration feel like a team sport and experience for all.
Very nice. This could be a LinkedIn learning course, I think. Right? The basics of it. That's really good. I'm going to ask Rebecca this question from the other side of the table, but the question for you is, what is a good approach to getting the attention of analysts? I mean, from what I know from colleagues who are there, is extremely busy. They have lots to do. I am very encouraged by not the emergence, it's been there for a long time, but really great independent analysts like Rebecca, who will have shortly on the show. So their time is also very important. So what are some good approaches to get the attention of analysts? Is it like an email, LinkedIn, or events face to face? What are you finding?
Yeah, of course. And I think a theme that I'm hearing throughout our conversation together is that as a whole, analyst relations, industry analysts, whatever job you're in, it's a job that is a relationship business, not a transaction business. And this is something that Brent discussed in his previous discussion with Christine Randall from ServiceNow that really resonated with me. Because end of day, it's about that personal human connection that you have one another. anyone can send an email and say, hey, Brent, do you want to have this conversation on X, Y, and Z? But until it's personalized, until someone knows the why behind it, it's very easy for you to archive it, delete it, and just keep moving on with your day. So one, it's the relationships. I believe that's so important and something that I really value in the day-to-day of what I do, because the analysts that I engage with on a day-to-day basis, they're not just ex-analysts covering the ESM market, for example, but it's someone that I know their broader story. We can connect on multiple things, and it's easy to just have dinners and conversations and feel like you're just picking up with an old friend. That's what I really strive for, where it's not just business talk, but it's getting to know one another at a human first centric level. And then I think an additional tip that I think really makes the biggest difference is that in-person face-to-face. End of day, it's very easy to be another face on the screen, but until we're in person, until, for example, our team was just at Forrester's T&I Summit about 2 weeks ago in Austin, Texas, and we had the opportunity to get together with some of our key analysts from Forrester. We were able to take them out to dinner, and ahead of that conference, for example, we learned that one of our analysts did have some dietary restrictions, which I totally understand and respect coming from an individual that has them as well. So we really curated an experience with that analyst that was custom to them, special, and allowed us to really get to know each other on a one-to-one level. But I really love just being in person, breaking bread, both learning from people during discussions, but having those informal conversations. Because I think sometimes people can be more tight-lipped on recorded calls, understandably so. But until you're live and in person, that just makes such a difference in rapport and makes future conversations so much easier and more candid, because I do think it feels more team-oriented as a whole.
Yeah, thank you, Derek, for your comment. Absolutely agree with you. So thanks for commenting on that. The relationship part just reminds me, like, even though I've been in this, it's a career change for me too, from being a CMO to an analyst.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of welcome that I've got from analysts in the AR community, like Rebecca actually told me about places to visit on my road trip across the US.
That's great.
We've had lunch, and I'm looking forward to our paths crossing too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're right. I mean, the community is small and it's very welcoming.
Mm-hmm.
And the personal, and I'm so happy that you mentioned about dietary restrictions and everything.
Yes.
I'm seeing more and more like companies, paying special attention to that, I think, which is very important. This has been really great. I'm going to send you to the green room. Feel free to, answer Derek or anybody else who's commenting. And then I definitely want to find some time to bring you both back and after that, right?
Yes.
So excellent. Quite a lot of good advice, Emma. We'll see you shortly.
Very good. Thanks so much.
So everybody, that was really fantastic. And, I really feel very honored that Rebecca, despite her busy schedule, agreed to be on the show. She also has a show on the Players Network. And there are a couple of other shows that you should listen to, including CRM Players, which is there. Rebecca is CEO and Principal Analyst at Valoir, a lot of technology coverage. She's a very well-respected voice on cloud, CRM, HCM, AI, analytics. I've heard her speak at conferences, and she's helped with the companies with product roadmaps, M&A decisions, and a lot of go-to-market strategies. And mostly it's very practical advice. So with that, let's bring on Rebecca Wettemann. Hey,
Hi.
I'm so glad you brought our special guest, Patrick,
Yes.
too.
And Patrick is here to say hi. Yeah.
That's true. That's fantastic. And thank you for joining a little early. I think you got a chance to hear what Emma is doing and some of the tips that she gave.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, and great to hear, Emma. Really some good advice, and wow, what a polished speaker, huh?
Yes, that was good. So let's start with your journey. I mean, how did you get into the space, and how did you come to this pinnacle of success where you are today?
Well, I'm one of those people that did a college degree that absolutely prepared me to be a technology analyst. So I have bachelor's degrees in political science and French. But I like to say I got into technology by dating a lot of geeks in college and having to translate what they were saying to the rest of the world. which is kind of an interesting way to think of it. But, I've been an analyst in the space for a long time and experienced it from a number of different perspectives. But I have to say, we've got one of the best jobs in the world, don't you think?
Yep. I'm relatively new, so I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying looking at new software. One of the things that you said that I really like is I've actually spoken on this topic of translating geek to English. So
Yep.
that resonates a lot with me.
Well, it's interesting. They say that learning a foreign language, actually, when people were starting to code, they started recruiting people who were foreign language experts because they found that coding had some certain parallels there and being able to learn and master a different language, which I think is kind of interesting. But I actually started my career, and Emma will appreciate this, in the collaboration space. Before intranets, before OpenText was even a twinkle in Tom Jenkins' eye. And moved over into broader enterprise application, around the early 2000s. But it's been really fun to see things evolve and see how the industry has evolved and the analyst industry has evolved as well.
Great. That segues into the next question I was going to ask you, how have you seen the industry evolve? And one thing that is I'm very curious about is software categories are also spreading. Companies are doing a lot more than they were doing in a particular category. So what are you seeing, Rebecca, in the industry?
I think the biggest change that I've seen over the years is just the disintermediation of information. It used to be that the only way customers could learn about products was for the vendors themselves or the analysts. And now there's so many different sources of information. There's so many crowdsourced sites. There's so many analysts gathering their own information. I can remember when, if you weren't talking to a vendor and getting the information from the vendor, you were kind of out of the loop. That's not necessarily true anymore because there's so many different ways to access that information. And I would say that's really changing the way we think about analysts, the way we think about the way we add value, the way we think about the way we publish, how we provide advice, all of those things. We've taken apart that job as information gatherer and disseminator and really required us to play on a higher level.
That's true. And one thing that I've seen is basically people used to trust their relatives, right? And then since we all became nuclear families, they were finding who else should I trust. On that note, I think there are two things that I've observed, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. One is analyst-generated content is highly citable because it's long form, it's got a lot of thought into it, and that comes up very high, especially in the age of AI-powered search, which I've done some research on.
Sure.
The second thing is also when they realize that the analysts have a background, they've got so much of publishing, so there's a little bit of lift in that, right? So are you seeing a little bit more where companies, I was just talking, my unofficial survey on LinkedIn tells me that there are only 250 people with the title analyst relations. And even industry analysts, I think, tend to be a small group. But the volume of business that they are generating, not directly, but through conversations, could be in the billions, right? So what is your advice to companies on developing a relationship with analysts, and what are some best practices you see?
Sure. I think probably the biggest thing, Shashi, is the one that I would say in any sort of relationship that you're trying to develop in life, right? Which is to be real. Be real about how you present your products. Be real about your expectations. Be real about taking feedback. And I know, a lot of friends and colleagues in the analyst relations space that talk about, they're very honest about whether they have executives that are going to be open to feedback and how that feedback might best be presented. If you're not interested in feedback from analysts, you're really looking at kind of the old school model that is much more transactional. I think that it should be an exchange. It should be a real exchange. And I think being real is sort of the foundation of that.
You have, I see you at a lot of interaction with a lot of companies. So, what are some best practices that companies should adopt? And maybe if you'd like, continue it to say, like, don't do this, maybe a couple of things that way too.
I think being prepared for an exchange, and this builds on what Emma said as well about building relationships, right? Be prepared for an exchange. I think often it's a sense of fear or not sure how to engage with an analyst, or maybe being trained in other interactions. But the way that you can get most out of that analyst is not to present to them, but to have a conversation with them. And I think that takes a degree of confidence and moving away from the PowerPoint script notes, but also being open to that feedback and recognizing that there's a lot of value to be shared on both sides of the table. I think the other thing I would say is don't be afraid to ask for things. A good analyst will tell you no and tell you what their boundaries are. And if you don't know, it's to Emma's point, right? If you don't ask, you won't know.
Yeah, that's true. I've been in the industry analyst phase for only 3 years. So, and if people were thinking about joining the profession of becoming an industry analyst, where should they start? What are some tips you'd like to give them?
Yeah, it's an interesting time to be coming into the world of an industry analyst, right? Because some of those entry level sort of jobs are going away. I would say the skills that are critical are really to be a good communicator. That means a good writer, but also a good listener. To develop those public speaking skills as well, because those are really important. And I would say too, to look for good mentors in the field. As you said earlier, we're a pretty small community, but a pretty tight-knit community of folks. And I think people who are looking to get into the analyst role, there are lots of opportunities if you start having those conversations with people.
That's true. I want to touch on something that you said about feedback, right? Like sometimes people don't like it when you call their baby ugly, right? But at the same time, you want to give that feedback. What have you noticed? I feel the best practice is probably, like write a follow-up note and just say like, hey, here are some suggestions and opportunities. But I think it's okay to say that in a conversation on the call too. What have you seen? I've seen like both sides of this. What would you recommend as the best practice for analyst relations to gather feedback and pass it in the company?
Yeah, I think we've all seen the surveys that are not really for feedback, but for self-congratulation, right? I think allowing time for Q&A, everybody always says more time for Q&A, but we recognize that that's limited. But I think best practices that I've seen is having that survey that's really open to ask, what did you really think? What would you improve? Those sorts of things where you can really get, as an analyst relations professional, advice for your executives that you can choose to disseminate how you want, but asking those real questions, also enabling kind of the Q&A where if the question doesn't get answered in the time you have, there's time for dialogue after. I think, and to be fair to our great analyst relations professionals in the world, we all know the kind of questions that are on calls that are performative and not helpful. So recognizing that's there, I'd say analysts need to be real too about when they're asking questions. And I think the good AR professionals can kind of sort that out, but also identify those pearls of feedback that may be real opportunities for a one-on-one after the fact, where executives can get maybe more access to that analyst insight.
Absolutely, great advice. I think when you think about this a lot, analysts have the privilege, I would say, of talking to multiple people in the same industry, right? So the conclusions that they come to, or they're able to speak to the landscape because of that. No amount of competitive intelligence research is going to give you that kind of an insight, right?
Right.
So I like it when CEOs actually tell analysts, like, tell us where we are doing well and what we could do better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's, I think, a great opening, and kudos to companies that start off that way. But there are larger companies where, there's so many levels. I think, like you said, it's good to get some feedback after the fact, and also have some one-on-ones to explain what this is. This is really good. What about approaches? What do you like when in analyst relations executive approaches you? What are some good practices you've seen?
By and far, the best practice is dog swag. No.
Absolutely.
I think again it comes down to, and I'll highlight some of the points that Emma talked about, right? It's being real, it's being proactive. Analyst relations people don't like to be surprised. Neither do analysts, right? So letting us know to the extent that you can, kind of what's coming down the pike from a product perspective can help us plan better and can help us think about what research that we're doing that may be more aligned with yours, or maybe how we want to adjust what we're thinking about from a research agenda perspective to more closely align with some things that you may be doing. I think having that open exchange, and again, being real, both from a product presentation and expectation, but also from a personal basis. I've developed great relationships with a number of analyst relations professionals that I've worked with through the years, and I've sort of seen them progress from company to company. And those relationships are as important as any product or any transaction.
That's true. I think we all have one common thread is having Paul Greenberg and Brent Leary, knowing them well, and they started a long time ago. Yeah. So tell us about Patrick. I think I enjoy seeing the Friday posts and other posts. So what is Patrick interested in this conversation?
Yeah. Well, Patrick is ready for Thanksgiving. We posted a special Thanksgiving edition of Patrick Friday today on LinkedIn, so you can see his Thanksgiving outfit for anybody who wants to tune in. But he's the real brains behind the outfit here. So he does a lot of hard work, a lot of supervision during the day.
That's true. No, I'm so glad.
And he travels very well. So if anybody's looking for, a guest speaker for an event, he is available.
It's excellent. Yes. On that note, what kind of speaking engagements are you very passionate about, and what should people reach out to you for?
Valoir, as the name implies, is focused on value. So a lot of the work, and probably the most popular speaking we do, is around how do you build the business case for technology. So whether it's you're deciding on a new AR strategy or AI strategy rather, or saying there are 20 different things I think I want to do with AI, how do I prioritize them in terms of what's likely to deliver the most value? That's the kind of thing that I get excited about. And that's a lot of the speaking that we do. Also on trends, broadly, what we're looking at is AI really eating software? We could talk for a long time about that. But it's very much focused on the value and helping customers measure the value of what technology delivers. And in a lot of cases, it's helping folks who are inside their own organizations see more broadly the business impact and communicate more broadly the business impact of what their decisions have been.
Very nice.
For me, speaking, what's fun about speaking, and I tell you, I was speaking at an event last week, 2 weeks ago, with Valoir in New York, and we were talking about sort of what's happening with people analytics, right? What's happening when AI comes along? How do you, as a people analytics expert, communicate the value of the data that you have to the broader business, not just to HR? And how do you sort of grow into that role of becoming that data whisperer to executives? And the fun thing for me, and the reason I mention it for any speaking engagement like that, is sort of watching the light bulbs go on in the room when people say afterward, I really thought something you said made me think differently, and I can take that home and do something with it. That to me is the exciting part of it.
Excellent. Yeah, I also like the topic that you mentioned of translating geek to English. I've also spoken on that topic. It's so important because technology is moving so fast, but the mainstream may not actually understand everything that technology can do. Yeah.
Or care.
Okay. Yeah,
Right.
sometimes that too. Spending Thanksgiving at home or
Yes.
traveling?
Yes, we'll be home.
I think you probably needed a little bit of respite from travel.
Time for a break. Now, are you home as well? I'll come by and see you.
Yes, we live almost in the same area. Otherwise, we should go to probably Ohio and see Emma, right? Rebecca, I have a short segment called Marketing While Brown. This was like always I wanted to have a Friday show. So I'm going to play that segment now, and then I'll bring you and Emma back for a conversation. This has been so interesting. I really love the fact that both of you have given so much of perspective and advice to the community. I hope more people post questions. We did have a lot of people who registered to attend, but many watched the recording as well.
Sure.
So we'll see you back in a minute. Hi, everyone. This is more a segment where, especially things that are not really mainstream, I'd like to bring on the stage. So today, the company or the tool that I wanted to give everybody is called the Analyst Copilot. We actually had the founder of this company who is actually an analyst himself. His name is J. Bruce Daly. It's very hard to track the companies that you want to look at. You want to find out what they're up to and their intelligence and everything. So what Analyst Copilot does is you can actually set the companies you're tracking, so it'll bring all the information in one place, and there are bells and whistles that help you save time and get more insights. So I just wanted to add this as this month's tool tip to give to the community, very well fitting into this. If you have any suggestions on tools that it doesn't have to be mainstream, it has to be something that's not up and coming or something that people haven't yet done. So check out analystcopilot.com and save some time. Again, I want to just say, like, since I'm an analyst and I work for Infotech, all my recommendations on this show have nothing to do with my work. These are just my personal recommendations. With that, I'm actually going to bring back Emma and Rebecca, and we can all have a chat. First of all, happy Thanksgiving to both of you, and thank you so much for joining the show. So what are some comments? And feel free. Have you both met in real life?
Oh, Rebecca, were you going to go? Sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
No, you're good. I don't believe our paths crossed, but they did it during my time at Salesforce when I was under the Sales Cloud organization.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Briefly at Sales Cloud.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I used to cover OpenText like a million years ago. So.
Yeah.
That's true.
But very grateful that you brought us back together. So thank you again.
Yeah. So, I mean, there were a lot of similarities in the perspectives that you both brought about.
And we all worked in hospitality.
Yes. Yes. So that's true.
A lot of the best negotiation skills you learn behind a bar, right?
Exactly. I'm a big believer that everyone needs to work in the service industry. It's very humbling and educational, start to finish. And
instant feedback. You don't have to wait for service. Like they tell you to your face how the service and the food was. I really like that too. I mean, Rebecca, you said something about whatever you studied in college isn't what you're doing now, but then those skills really helped. I mean, my son is a sophomore. He's coming home today, and I can't advise him on what to do. I just tell him, like, whatever you do today, 40 years from now, you might be doing something different. Mm-hmm. So careers are changing. What do you both think about careers, and what should people activate when they think about a career change?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because we do a lot of research in the skills area and understanding. Mm-hmm. Obviously, as I think about what I'm going to be able to really transform with AI, I have to understand what my employees' skills are. I think for everyone looking for a job today, it's very challenging. We're seeing organizations shift from I need to hire for jobs to I need to hire for skills, yet very few of them have a good handle on what that actually means. So I think for job searchers looking forward, words, Emma, words
Yes,
are hard.
I know, especially right around the corner with the holidays. I get it.
For job seekers looking forward, it really has to be about showing the ability to learn, the ability to reason, and the ability to adapt. Those are hard things to put on a resume, right? I think we'll see more and more folks kind of do the more storytelling resume approach, where they're showing how they were able to adapt, how they were able to learn, how they were able to change roles, how they were able to take on new responsibilities. And those kind of things are going to be things that job recruiters start to look more closely for.
That's true. What do you think, Emma?
Yeah, no, that was a really great response to Rebecca in terms of the skills versus the job and what you're looking for in your next career. I think holistically, to answer your question, Shashi, there's two sides of this question where one, I do believe it's really important to be planted and grounded in where you are on a day-to-day basis. This is something that a mentor shared with me in terms of my professional journey of the value of being present in the now and really making as much as you can out of the opportunity that you are given in life, but also recognizing from a professional and personal standpoint what is important to you. Is it work-life balance? If it is a growth mindset, is it the technology or space that you're working in? Is it having a flexible manager and the rapport that brings to you in your personal life? Recognizing what are those important things to you, but also being able to draw the line to recognize if I'm not receiving X, Y, and Z in my current role, if and when is it the time to jump or look for different opportunities. For myself, for example, growth mindset is very important to me. So I really strive to make the most out of all opportunities that I am in, but as well be cognizant of if and when perhaps I'm not growing or receiving the opportunities that I want. But I think it's all about the individual, what's important to them and what are they comfortable and willing to do to get there. And I think as well, depending on the pace and maturity of your career, there may be different things you're looking for and trying to balance in your personal and professional life.
Good point.
Good point. Yes. One thing that I was thinking of there are some companies that are moving very fast. And in my opinion, if your product is moving so fast and you're introducing so many things, it's not only just the analysts, but your customers also may get confused because especially if you have big customers, it takes them a long time to change something. What are some best practices that you've seen about companies who are introducing a lot of things very fast? Like, what are they doing? Is it user groups? Is it more conferences? Or maybe either of you can feel free to start.
Sure. I'm happy to jump in from the analyst relations perspective. In terms of those release cycles, I believe it's so important, as Rebecca was sharing earlier, about letting your community and industry analysts in, for example, along that journey. Because without that information, you very easily can feel left out and out of the know. And so for us, with our two portfolios that I lead at OpenText, our DevOps and then our observability and service management teams, it's about being very curated and personalized with the communications that we have with our community to make sure they're receiving those timely updates, but not just when it's released, but having pre-briefings or quarterly briefings so they are ahead of the know. So when we do share new releases and innovations, they can talk about it. They can be an advocate and champion in our corner and really be in on the know of what we're doing and what's new. But end of the day, there's so many insights to be shared. And I believe it's so important to lean on trusted advisors like both of yourselves to give us feedback to our roadmap and what we're doing, because it is so important to be transparent, as Rebecca said as well, to recognize where your strengths are, but even perhaps where there are gaps or how our execs may receive or be open to feedback in that regard.
Yeah, there's go ahead, Rebecca, and then we'll answer Ryan's question.
I, of course, wholeheartedly agree with Emma that you should talk to analysts really often. But I would say also that building a strong community of your own customers can help each other along that journey, where they're saying, I'm not sure how this new feature works, or I'm not sure what this capability is. I think particularly with the pace of innovation that's been delivered in the cloud space and in the AI space, that having that customer community where early adopters can help be advocates, be trainers, be teachers, and help bring other folks along. I think successful companies that have delivered a high degree of innovation have also looked at how do they build not just online education, but a way for their customers to talk to each other and learn from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you, Ryan, for your question. I think, is there an area of the organization or business discipline AR hasn't impacted well enough? What do you suggest to address these opportunities? I just want to start with a small observation. Like when I get invited to go to a conference, I spend a lot of time in the corridors or with customers on lunch tables. I'm not necessarily like trying to find something different, but just hearing the conversations comes up. I think it also helps the AR persons when some of their internal like serendipitous meetings and connections. But that's only my observation. Why don't you go first, Emma, and then Rebecca or Patrick can answer this question.
Sure. And thank you so much, Ryan, for your question. We really appreciate it. Two areas in particular that I've been focusing more on the AR realm to really hone in on and better support is our sales enablement and as well competitive intelligence team. End of day, analyst relations impact isn't instant, it's cumulative. So while that can be harder to measure, I believe it's really important that we're supporting the sales cycle, customer deals, conversations as much as we can with validation proof points from analysts, from reports, et cetera. And on the competitive intelligence side, I was actually just chatting with my manager earlier this week, is that we really want to be more proactive about competitive insights and partnering with that team internally to ensure beyond just sharing, hey, Rebecca just shared this with us, Paul just shared this with us, X, Y, and Z, but being proactive and mapping out an engagement plan, for example, of here's when our competitors' conferences are, and following even before those conferences, having timely conversations with the analysts to say, hey, Rebecca, I know you just attended Ignite or whatever it may be. What were your insights? What worked? What didn't? And how can we fill in the gaps and better educate you on what we're doing in those particular areas? So no AR program is perfect by any means, and there's different areas of improvements depending on the maturity and size of the team. But I'm happy to chat more about this further, as I know there's no one way to do the things in organizations.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, Ryan. And obviously, Ryan has lots of experience as an analyst relations professional over the years, so I'm sure he has his own views on this as well. I would say there's a high degree of variability in the ability of AR to work with competitive intelligence and sales enablement, which are the two areas that Emma mentioned. I think another area where there's an opportunity for AR to get involved is more on the business value and the business value engineering. There are an awful lot of analysts that know a lot about the value the technology delivers. And I think sometimes it tends to be more of an internally focused team, the one that necessarily leverages those relationships with analysts that analysts has built.
That's true. And Ryan, I just thought of something like I almost never meet anyone from customer success. Whereas I think it's probably even one way would be good if they just talk about their stories. And also I've heard that the most successful AI projects have been where the frontline managers have had a say and have said like what their problems are. So maybe that's something to take away and have analysts meet the customer success folks, right? And it also shows a lot of transparency, in my opinion. Great question, Ryan. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Yeah. So we've talked. I mean, this is like we've talked so much about a lot of perspectives. What other questions do you have for each other?
So Emma, are you team canned cranberry sauce or homemade?
So good question, Rebecca. And my family is a little less traditional with our Thanksgiving traditions, actually. So one, I have not had either. So I don't think I'm the best to weigh in.
Okay.
Our family's less traditional. We do spaghetti meatballs and we call it a day. But I definitely respect all traditions. And I do appreciate the hard work that goes into preparing a Thanksgiving meal. What about yourself?
Spaghetti and meatballs for Thanksgiving. That sounds great.
Yes, it's easy. We're in comfy casual clothes. We call it a day and then just enjoy a day of football together.
There you go. And Shashi, do you do traditional American, or what do you do for Thanksgiving?
I mean, it's a hybrid. So instead of a turkey, we'll have a full chicken cooked with Indian spices in the oven. And of course, like when my kids were much younger, we'd probably do a mixture of both so that they also can partake in what the tradition is here. But I think it's a good time for us to be thankful and I really appreciate the holiday. That's true. So, I mean, I think I would enjoy both, if that makes sense. Yeah, that's true. So, I think we are almost coming to the end of the show. Maybe what is your final word? Any advice? Anything that you're seeing that people should pay attention to, either personally or for their own company? Rebecca, you go first.
I would say there's so much around AI right now, and it's going to transform the way I do my job and the way Emma does her job and the way we all do our jobs. But I think we have to remember that behind all of this ultimately is people. Mm-hmm. And if we're just using AI to generate reports and AR is just using AI to respond to requests for information, we're really missing the point, right? This is understanding about how people get value from technology. We've got to focus on the people part too. Mm-hmm. And Patrick agrees, right?
Great. Yeah, that's true. Emma?
Sure. No, those were really great points, Rebecca. I think in short, some summary and recommendations that I have for those tuning in today is, in short, know your people, know your priorities, know your products, and pursue what brings you joy. End of day, I think that makes such a difference in the day-to-day, and who you surround yourself, like our individuals here today, are really what bring joy to my day-to-day and my job. So I hope others are continuing to pursue their joy and what they're passionate about in life.
Very nice. So the next show is going to be on December 17th. That's because I'm going to go on a trip to India after that. Otherwise, usually this is the last Wednesday. This show is always on the last Wednesday. Rebecca and Emma, thank you very much. It was a wonderful conversation, lots of good information. And of course, Patrick, thank you for joining us. You both have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and so does the audience. Really appreciate you being here, or if you're watching the recording, feel free to submit questions in advance, or feel free to submit requests for guests on this show, or for your tools. Thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate you being here. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Have a great Thanksgiving.
This has been a Players Productions Network digital broadcast.